When a man puts on a spacesuit and heads out into the void, he's utterly alone. Or is he? Who's There? By Arthur C. Clarke. Read by Karl. When satellite control called me, I was writing up the day's progress report in the observation bubble. A glass domed office that juts out from the axis of the space station on the hubcap of a wheel. It was really not a good place to work, for the view was too overwhelming. Only a few hours away, I could see the construction teams performing their slow-motion ballet as they put the station together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. And beyond them, 30,000 miles below, was the blue-green glory of the full Earth, floating against the raffled star clouds of the Milky Way. Station supervisor here, I answered. What's the trouble? Our radar is showing a small echo 2 miles away, almost stationary, about 5 degrees west of Sirius. Can you give us a visual report on it? Anything matched our orbit so precisely could hardly be a meteor. It had to be something we'd dropped. Perhaps an inadequately secured piece of equipment that had drifted away from the station. So I assumed. When I pulled up my binoculars and searched the sky around Orion, I soon found my mistake. Though this space travel was man-made, it had nothing to do with us. I found it, I told Control. Someone's test satellite, cone-shaped, 4 antennas, looks like a lens system in its base. Probably U.S. Air Force. Early 1960, judging by design. I know they lost track of several when their transmitters failed. There were quite a few attempts to hit this orbit before they finally made it. After a brief search through the files, Control was able to confirm my guess. It took a little longer to find out that Washington wasn't the least bit interested in our discovery of a 20-year-old stray satellite. We're just as happy if we lost it again. Well, we can't do that, said Control. Even if nobody wants it, this thing's a menace to the navigation. Someone should better go out and haul it aboard. Now, someone I realized would have to be me. I dared not detach a man from the closely knit construction teams, for we were already behind schedule, and a single day's delay on the job cost $1 million. All the radio and TV networks on Earth were waiting impatiently for the moment when they could route their programs to us, and thus provide the first truly global service, spanning the world from pole to pole. I'll go out and get it, I answered, snapping an elastic band on my paper so the air currents from the ventilation wouldn't send them wandering around the room. Though I tried to sound as if I was doing everyone a great favor, I was secretly not at all displeased. It had been at least 2 weeks since I'd been outside. I was getting a little tired of store schedules, maintenance reports, and all the glamorous ingredients of a space station supervisor's life. The other member of the staff I passed on my way to the airlock was Tommy, our recently acquired cat. Pets mean a great deal to men thousands of miles from Earth, but there aren't many animals that can adapt themselves to a weightless environment. Tommy mewed plaintively at me as I clambered into my spacesuit, but I was in too much of a hurry to play with him. At this point, perhaps I should remind you that the suits for use on the station are completely different from the flexible affairs men wear when they want to walk around the moon. Ours are really just baby spaceships, just big enough to hold one man. They are stubby cylinders, about 7 feet long, fitted with low-power propulsion jets, have a pair of accordion-like sleeves at the upper end for the operator's arms. Naturally, however, you keep your hands drawn inside the suit, working the manual controls in front of your chest. As soon as I settled down inside my very exclusive spacecraft, I switched on power and checked the gauges on the tiny instrument panel. There's a magic word, FORB, that you often hear spacemen mutter as they climb into their suits. It reminds them to test fuel, oxygen, radio, batteries. All my needles were all in the safety zone, so I lowered the transparent hemisphere over my head and sealed myself in. For a short trip like this, I did not bother to check the suit's internal lockers, which are used to carry food and special equipment for extended missions. As the conveyor belt decanted me into the airlock, I felt like an Indian papoose being carried along on its mother's back. Then the pumps brought the pressure down to zero, the outer door opened, and the last traces of air swept me out into the stars, turning me slowly head over heels. The station was only a dozen feet away, yet I was now an independent planet, a little world of my own. I was sealed up on a tiny mobile cylinder with a superb view of the entire universe, but I had practically no feet of movement inside the suit. The padded seat and safety belts prevented me from turning around, though I could reach all the controls and lockers with my hands or feet. In space, the great enemy is the sun, which can blast you to blindness in seconds. Very cautiously, I opened up the dark filters on the night side of my suit and turned my head to look at the stars. At the same time, I switched the helmet's internal sunshade to automatic. Whatever way the suit gyrated, my eyes would be shielded from that intolerable glare. Presently, I found my target, a bright fleck of silver whose metallic glint distinguished it clearly from the surrounding stars. I stamped on the jet control pedal and felt the mild surface acceleration as a low-powered rocket set me moving away from the station. After 10 seconds of steady thrust, I estimated my speed was great enough and cut off the drive. It would take me 5 minutes to coast the rest of the way, and not much longer to return with my salvage. And it was at that moment, as I launched myself out into the abyss, that I knew something was horribly wrong. It's never completely silent inside a spacesuit. You can always hear the gentle hiss of oxygen, the faint whir of fans and motors, the susurration of your own breathing, even, if you listen carefully enough, the rhythmic thump that is the pounding of your heart. These sounds reverberate through the suit, unable to escape its surrounding void. They are the unnoticed background of life in space, if you're aware of them only when they change. They change now. To them had been added a sound which I could identify. It was an intermittent, muffled thudding, sometimes accompanied by a scraping noise as of metal upon metal. I froze instantly, holding my breath and trying to locate the alien sound with my ears. The meters on the control board gave no clues. All needles were rock steady on their scales, and there were none of the flickering red lights that were warning of impending disaster. There was some comfort, but not much. I had long ago learned to trust my instincts in such matters. The alarm signals were flashing now, telling me now to return to the station before it was too late. Even now, I do not like to recall this next few minutes, as panic slowly flowed into my mind like a rising tide, overflowing the dams of reason and logic which every man must direct against the mystery of the universe. I knew then what it was to face insanity. No explanation fitted the facts. For it was no longer possible to pretend the noise disturbing me was that of some faulty mechanism. Though I was in utter isolation, far from any other human being or indeed any mature object, I was not alone. The soundless void was bringing to my ears the faint but unmistakable stirrings of life. In the first heart-freezing moment, it seemed to me that something was trying to get into my suit. Something invisible, seeking shelter from the cruel and pitiless vacuum of space. I whirled madly in my harness, scanning the entire sphere of vision around me except for the blazing forbidden cone towards the sun. There was nothing there. Of course, there could not be. Yet that purposeful scrabbling was clearer than ever. Despite the nonsense that's been written about us, it is not true that spacemen are superstitious. Can you blame me if, as I came to the end of logic resource, I suddenly remembered how Bernie Summers had died? No further sensation I had been at this very moment. It was one of those impossible accidents, it always is. Three things had gone wrong at once. Bernie's oxygen regulator had run wild and set the pressure soaring. The safety valve had failed to blow, and a faulty joint had given way instead. In a fraction of a second, his suit was open to space. I never know Bernie, but suddenly his fate became of overwhelming importance to me, for a whole idea had come into my mind. One does not talk about these things, but if a damaged spacesuit is too valuable to be thrown away, even if it has killed its wearer, it's repaired, renumbered, and issued to someone else. What happens to the soul of a man who dies between the stars, far from his native world? Are you still here, Bernie? Clinging to the last update that linked you to your lost and distant home? As I fought the nightmares that were swirling around me, for now it seems the scratching and fumbles were coming from all directions, there was one last hope to which I clung. For the sake of my sanity, I had to prove this wasn't Bernie's suit, that the wall so closely wrapped around me had never been another man's coffin. It took me several tries before I could press the right button and switch my transmitter to the emergency wavelength. "Station," I gasped. "I'm in trouble. Get records to check my suit history and—" I never finished. They say my yell wrecked the microphone. Well, what man alone in the absolute isolation of a spacesuit would not have yelled with something patted him softly in the back of the neck? I must have lunged forward, despite the safety harness, smashed against the upper edge of the control panel. When the rescue squad reached me a few minutes later, I was still unconscious with an angry bruise across my forehead. And so I was the last person in the whole satellite relay system to know what had happened. When I came to my senses an hour later, All our medical staffs were gathered around my bed. It was quite a while before the doctors bothered to look at me. They were much too busy playing with the three cute little kittens our badly misnamed Tommy had been running the seclusion of my spacesuit's number 5 storage locker. The end.